Here.
Mr. Wilcox.
Here.
Mr. Richardson.
Present.
Okay, at this time, Reverend John Smith, could you please stand for a prayer, please?
Our Heavenly Father, thank you for this privilege to stand here in our nation and talk to you. Lord, there is so much that we can look forward to in this new year. We thank you for the new year. Lord, there's so much that we have concerns about. I want to begin by thanking you for all that you've done for us and all your goodness to us. And Lord, I thank you for these men that have taken on this leadership role in our county. And I pray for them. I pray, Lord, that they would have hearts that would be tender to you and to the people that live in this county. God, you would give them wisdom that is beyond them as they make decisions about things that they cannot possibly know the end of, but you can. So I ask God that you would help them and strengthen them. Father, as we think about our county in 2017, again, we don't know what the year holds, but you do. And we're asking you for your blessing. We're asking you for your help. Lord, I ask you for the families of this community that you would bring healing. I ask you, Lord, for our schools that they would be strong and our children could be strengthened. Lord, I pray for our folks in protective services, our police officers and our firefighters, our volunteers, all of them, Lord, that God, you put your hand around them and the crisis that they will face in the coming year. Lord, I pray for the heart of this county, that you give us a heart to care for each other, a heart to care for you, to love you, a heart, Lord, that makes us proud to live in the place that we live. I'm thankful for the way that our children are taught. Oh God, would you bless America? And Father, we're asking you today to bless Elbert County. I love you. And I thank you so much for loving us. I pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Don?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God.
There's a sign-in list that we're trying to keep track of, and it will be at the doorways you're coming in. So if you're intent on speaking, please sign up. We'll get the list, and then we'll ask you to come up to the podium and speak. So, and if nobody got a chance to, at this point, is there any open discussion? We'll go this meeting. So. Okay, that's okay, then go right ahead.
But we'll be pretty firm about it at future meetings if we have to sign in.
I'll follow the rules in the compliance officer. Ms. Victoria Thalmer of 1227 Coronado Road, Elizabeth, Colorado. I just want to thank you all for taking on the responsibility of being our county commissioners. I would like to propose that we have one BOCC meeting in the evening so other concerned citizens who cannot attend the meetings during the day can attend in the evening so they can have their concerns heard by you. And thank you and look forward to 2017.
Thank you, Victoria. We'll take that into consideration. Since no one signed up, is there anyone else wanting to open comment? Okay. This time, we move on to discussion items. First item on the agenda is the policy regarding the Board of County Commissioners meeting, there's been a number of changes. Is there discussion on it?
I'd first just like to thank Ed and the staff. Grant, Danny, and I have had a lot of discussion with folks over the last few months of how we'd like to see meetings run, and this policy probably gets to about the 90% mark of what we've discussed, which was really to allow a much more open process. You'll see it on today's agenda with the discussion versus action items. Our intent is to discuss issues in a meeting prior to ever moving into action. We can discuss them ad nauseum, but until we're ready to move into action, they could remain on discussion for multiple meetings before ever moving to action. And periodically, something might be quick and simple, and we just decide to take it up at that meeting. But as you roll through it, during the discussion piece, there's a place for public comment after we've discussed an issue. If there's something or an aspect of the issue that you don't think we're considering, certainly we'll take public comment. And then as we move to action, again, if there's some input, we'll take that from the public before we make our final discussion and decision. So, I think the policy captures that. I think we do need to add a little bit in terms of noting that we do generally follow Robert's rules. There's a few caveats with a third-person board. If the chair can't make a motion or second and we have one person absent, we might have a quorum, but an inability under the strict Robert's rules to actually take anything up for consideration. So I'd make that suggestion. And I think there's just maybe a little bit more expansion of the various portions of public comment we need to work into the policy. Other than that, I'm relatively happy with it.
I second what Chris said, but from my perspective, one of the things of having attended a large number of the BOCC meetings over the last few years is there was a lack of predictability in terms of professionalism and procedure. And prior to us getting sworn in, we spent a lot of time saying, how do we make the format of these meetings such that the public will be treated with a little more respect and predictability. You know, we're going to, like Chris said, we'll go back to spending a little bit more time thinking about Robert's Rules of Order. For example, if you have a motion on the floor, you can have one amendment before you can act on it. The whole idea what we in some of these meetings there's been multiple amendments. And to be quite frankly, I didn't know what the then current board of directors were voting on. We want to make this thing more understandable, more predictable, more friendly. And if we have missed the boat on that, I sure appreciate somebody talking to me, but that is the intent. Do we need a motion to adopt these?
Well, there's I'll ask for a motion here in a second.
Okay.
And I wanted to thank the staff. We've made a number of changes. We've requested staff to help us with all these changes, and actually they made all these changes while we were trying to learn how to be commissioners last week, because we were at class for 3 days. So I did want to thank everyone for all the help and efforts that they put into making the changes and creating this different environment. So thank you. So go ahead.
Just another thing you'll see, it was on the agenda today. We will end our meetings with at least crafting the tentative agenda for the follow-up meeting. So there are many surprises. Again, the staff worked very quickly last week to turn most of the documents that are in front of us today are now available online, and they'll be published pretty much concurrently with the agendas. We're shooting for about a week prior to our meetings. We're still working through how our processes can work best. Nobody in the audience has to come in blind. I do think we have a little bit more work maybe next week.
Okay. Is there any discussion out there on this topic? Thank you. All right, so what we'll do is we'll move this forward to the next meeting. And if you could work with us and help them make the change. All right, thank you. Next item, since we pushed the tentative agenda to the end of the meeting, we'll go to the public trustee report, which is on your agenda.
Commissioners, ElbertCounty County Manager, the treasurer was unable to be here today, so we would suggest that we move that report to the 25th.
Then, if we're okay, we'll move the public trustees report to the 25th. Okay? Any comments? No? All right, on to action items. Point chair and vice chair, Board of County Commissioners.
I would like to make the motion that Danny Wilcox be made the chairman of the Board of County Commissioners. The reason for that is he's got the most experience of all three of us, and it may not be a lot, but it's sure a lot more than the other two of us have. I think I made a motion there.
I'll second. Presuming that Danny accepts the nomination.
All right, thank you. Discussion?
Let's move forward.
Good. Okay. Then what we'll do is vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, vice chair.
I would like to make a comment there. I'm reserving the title of elder statesman for myself, and therefore I'm making the motion that Chris Richardson be vice chair.
Guess I'll second that.
Okay, any discussion?
I'd love to serve.
Okay, vote. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, next action item. The December 21 minutes. A little bit of a dilemma here because there's only one present actually as a board member at that meeting, it was myself. So, we could,
Yeah, I would move approval, but not as, since I wasn't a member of the board at the time, I'd have to recuse myself from the vote. I have reviewed them, they seem to be accurate based on my recollection. So. But I think they do need to be posted and part of our permanent records.
Danny, are you comfortable with the minutes?
I was comfortable with it.
Then let's just move forward.
Okay, then call for a vote. Those in
We don't have anything
favor?
to vote on.
I think we just move that they be posted as.
Okay, I'm sorry. I second the motion.
Okay. All in favor? Aye. Okay. Minutes are taken care of. We have a resolution regarding the organizational meeting and the 2017 appointments and reappointments. And it is a resolution, so that was actually in your package. There are, I believe, a few changes. However, can I entertain a motion to accept the current document?
As I understand it, the resolution is that those appointments that are in place at this time will remain in place until either June or July of this year. The reason being is that some of us are fairly new as being commissioners, and we'd like to get to know some of these positions a little bit better, or a lot better than we do now. This will give us time to become familiar with the individuals, and it'll give us an opportunity to become more familiar with the expectations of those various bodies.
Yeah, I would move that we accept resolution or adopt resolution 17 to be determined organizational meeting 2017 appointments and reappointments with two minor changes. As written, it states that it's Wednesday the 25th, which should be adjusted to and to add Commissioner Wilcox and myself as chair and vice chair.
Second.
Second, yep.
Any discussion?
Just quickly, as we went through this, there's not a lot of changes from last year. Office hours remain the same. It sets the calendar of holidays for the year. We have 10 as we did last year. Veterans Day has become a floating holiday because that occurs during the weekend. Probably the most substantial change is we've added an additional posting place for the agendas, which will be on the public bulletin board that's outside the building, so it's available 24/7 for agendas and notices.
No, the only one is that, and I don't know if this is the appropriate time to discuss it or not, there's 2 openings on the planning commission. And because of, this is a special meeting, we've identified the people that we would put in those openings. One of them would be in my area, and one of them would be in Chris's area. The one for District 3 would be Jim Keane, but we can't, will be formally appointed at the next meeting, and I'll let you address it.
Yeah, and for District 1, the vacancy would be filled by Justin Clausen. And as we went through this, the planning commission had become a little imbalanced. There wasn't any representation from District 3. We've gotten up to the point where we had 6 from District 1 and 3 from District 3. So I vacated one of my vacancies. I passed on to Grant so we can get some District 3 representation.
And my hope is over time, and I have no desire to change anybody on there, but as we have some attrition, and I know when I was on the planning commission, there was about a third of the planning commissioners moved on each year, either from moving or got lost interest or whatever, it doesn't matter. So over the next while, I would like to see the planning commission become balanced with respect to the different districts, because I really think geographical diversity on the planning commission is important. So I don't know.
Then we do have a motion. I was going to ask for any public discussion. With no discussion, then there's a motion on the table and a second. So we have a vote to accept the document with the minor changes.
Yes.
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 I need some instruction. How am I supposed to say aye, yes, or okay, or?
No. It changed before. Grant, whatever you want. Okay.
Aye.
All right. Aye.
I'll change my vote to aye.
Well, not clear to me, Al.
There we go. Thanks, Dallas. All right, next item. Motion to amend the agreement for consulting services with Forstgren and Associates.
Okay, I would like to make a motion on this, and again, a little out of order in what we're trying to accomplish by teeing things up for discussion prior to taking action, but this one, I think we just need to take some action on. So, we originally envisioned the management of the contract very differently than what was finally approved. It's proven a bit clumsy by designating a 3-person board that only meets sporadically to provide day-to-day oversight of the contract. So I'm going to move that we direct our county manager to engage with Forstgren Associates on behalf of the Elbert County Board of Commissioners for the purpose of developing amendments to the current contract for the rural water supply study no later than the 15th of next month. Such amendments will address altering contract oversight in order to establish a single point of contact for management from the county, reducing county administrative and coordination burdens articulated in the original contract, and to do so in a manner that limits additional costs to the county. And I do so really just to help us move this along on a day-to-day basis. So, that's my motion.
I'll second that motion, but I think some discussion is appropriate.
Yeah.
The transfer of information from the county to the contractor perhaps has been a bit awkward. And what we're trying to do is set it up so there's one person for the contractor to get county information. Now, one of the things, and we discussed this with the county manager this morning, is that we fully expect that the relationship between the Water Advisory Committee or Board will be sacred. By that I mean that there should be a strong interface between all of the parties involved with the Water Advisory Committee being intricately involved in the process as we go forward. That's all I've got.
Okay.
Yeah, and I would expect, as I said, we took this a little over order, there will be some changes. My expectation is we'll see this for discussion at several meetings before we take final action to make any amendments to the contract, so there'll be plenty of opportunities for discussion and public input as we move forward to final changes.
Would it be possible for either the Water Advisory Committee or the contractor to come up and kind of give us a status report of where we're at?
We have to.
Morning, Commissioners, and congratulations on your new seats. Looking forward to big thanks from everybody. It's sure many of us in town are. So, our work on the water supply study so far has been a matter of putting together a lot of information on the existing water supply situation with regard to modeling or providing mapping and modeling and collecting data to collate about the amount of water in each of the aquifers and what some of the pumping rates have been and where there's been some drawdown in these different aquifers. We've also done some population projections for those areas that were identified as study areas, which are really population focus areas that we've talked about previously. And those evaluations are showing that we've got a couple of different turns of the population growth in the coming years through 2050. And so we're planning now to have an open house, a study session, if you will. We'd like to get on the calendar for sometime in February, do a public open house where we can present our findings to that point and get input on the direction from the county commissioners.
So the outcome, when you're completed, would be giving us some kind of a relationship between projected growth and the availability of the water to support that growth. Is that right?
Right. Yeah, and then from there we will look and based on the population projections and the water needs through 2050, we'll look at what options are available, and if you continue pumping the wells that we have, what's that look like for that future versus do we need to reach out and bring renewable water to the county, and what's that alternate future look like? So laying out a few of those options, and we're planning to identify 3 options for that 2050 future.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Is there any further discussion out there on this topic? Go ahead.
I would just like to ask the gentleman, how are the stakeholders?
You'll have to go up to the
Oh, I
mic.
can do that. Bob Blair, Chairman of the Water Advisory Committee. I'd like to ask Will, how are the returns on the stakeholder reports coming? The value of the water study is really going to be on what we get from the stakeholders, and I would just like to know what the progress is on that.
Okay.
Music and services.
Yeah.
I need to address that question. Primarily, that has been put back on county staff. The staff has put a considerable amount of time into gathering information from stakeholders and interested parties and so forth, and then we update that information and provide it for Forestry. There's 54, I think there's 54 special districts that we're trying to obtain information from. Many of them are in a default state or haven't developed, and so obtaining that information has been difficult. And so as we get it, we provide it for Adrian, and they utilize it to do their analytical report.
Thank you. Any further discussion? None, we've got a vote on the table, we've got a motion on the table. We've got a second, so a vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, so at this point, our action items are complete. We had an executive session, we do have an executive session scheduled. But due to the timing, we actually got through this agenda quite a bit quicker than we believed we would. So what we'll do is, if we could, we'll go to the agenda items for, that we're going to move to the end of the meeting. So it was number 2. So we'll start with the determination of the tentative agenda for the 25th meeting. So I think first one on the list is the Rush Creek Wind Farm.
And that will be a public hearing.
Ed?
I'll just go through from the top, take it from the top. So on consent items right now, for the 25th, we have CDS vouchers. We don't have anything else under consent at this point. Then under discussion items, we'll have the board policy, and we'll revise that, present it to you guys again, and then you'll have some options where you want to take that. We'll have vehicle leases for the SO. We'll have a vehicle lease for the coroner. We'll have the highway users tax fund report that we have to certify and get off to the state. That's all we have for discussion at this point. Under action items, we have approval of the minutes of today's meeting. We'll have the policy of the board meetings, hopefully, that'll be ready to go for consideration. That's all we have under action currently. Then we'll have an executive session slot if we need it. Land use, we'll have the public hearing on Rush Creek 2 Wind Farm. And then you'll see a new item in the agenda as proposed, as discussed. It talks about board planning, and we'll have a determination of the tentative agenda for the next meeting. That's currently what we have, unless you folks have anything else you'd like to add at this time.
Yeah, the one I'd like to see, just as a recurring consent item, is approval, just put our monthly variance reports on. So generally, they'll be just consent. If there's something that seems to be a little out of whack, or we want more discussion, we can pull them out into discussion.
We can do that.
And then for the Rush Creek Wind Farm, how many folks turned up for the planning commission meeting? And do we need to move out of this room?
Good morning, Commissioners. Kyle Fenner, Director of Community Development Services. I would highly recommend that you have that meeting at Fairgrounds. I would say we had 125, maybe. It was sizable. So I think that it would behoove us. I think we would end up going into recess and moving over there anyway. So I think that having that meeting over there would be a good idea. I have a request too, just for consent agenda, just for your contemplation. In the past, CDS vouchers and Mylars were always on the consent agenda. Mylars, whether or not you want, they may be separate items for you. And however it is you decided to manage CDS in the future. For now, having that as a placeholder would be welcomed by our department as its own. Mylars, on the other hand, I think are a very, very good idea. Applicants, that's the last step, of course, and they're running around getting signatures, et cetera. We always leave your signature for last, and they can't move forward with their project until that signature is there. We would very much like, you've already approved it, it's already actually been through its process. The signature is really that formality that finalizes it and allows us to record it so they can move forward. That would be a request. If you want to discuss that at another meeting, feel free, and I'll be more prepared to discuss it if you'd like.
Keeping that on our regular meeting as consent is fine. This was a special meeting today.
Any other items? Ed?
So just for further information, staff will have this stuff, have the backup information for this agenda ready and post it to the web by Thursday evening. And then in the future, we are working towards video in these meetings. So we've set a current goal of trying to have a video up and running and be able to post that to the web as well by March 8th. So you'll see some changes as we move forward. Again, so that everybody understands, we're trying to tee this up and get the schedule set to where basically we eliminate the need for the Monday morning agenda meetings, and we have those discussions in this meeting on Wednesdays or on a regular scheduled board meeting, and it'll be under a discussion item. Then at that point, we'll make a determination whether those action items or those items that require action by the board can be moved to future action on future agendas, which should provide more information and more time for the public and staff to see where we're at and what we're doing.
And just as a question, that's the March 8th meeting would be video, is that?
That's correct.
Yeah, and then how long, and I'm showing my ignorance here, but what would be the turnaround time to get that on the county webpage?
We'll make a proposal to the board. We'll show you, we'll give you an idea of what we're planning in policy and on how quick we can upload that information, how long it would stay there, what replaces it, does it stay there forever, those type of things. We need to do further evaluation to determine how quick we can do some of those things. It'd be relatively quick. It'd be probably that day.
And then how does that compare to the formal minutes?
That, it will not be your official formal minutes, and I'd invite the clerk to discuss that a little bit further, but your official minutes are your recording, well, it's your recording, correct? So it's your audio recording that you have in front of you today. If the board would like to change that in the future, we can discuss that at a later date.
Any further discussion? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Okay. Then we have the agenda set for the final meeting. Any more items to move forward with? All right, at this point, I believe the attorney present.
Sure, we can go into executive session.
Are they, if we could, what we're going to do, we're going to call for an executive session at this point. And we're going to handle this a little differently. In the past, we've moved everybody out of the room. We're not going to do that. What we will do is we will adjourn here and go into a room, the three of us, and conduct our executive session, then return here. I expect this executive session may last about an hour. I would think it may be that long, and I apologize for the time, but we quite a bit to discuss. So, if that, can I entertain a motion to
Mr. Chairman, I hereby move that the Alberta County Board of County Commissioners go into executive session with the outside counsel Nathan, Doug, and Meyer for the purpose of receiving legal advice on specific legal questions or issues pursuant to section 4-6-402, subparagraph 4, subparagraph B of the Colorado Revised Statutes.
second?
I'll second that, but one of the things I would like to suggest to you is we just set a reconvene time of 11 o'clock so that then the public can, and attend time.
Could say, I believe it will be approximately an hour. I hope I can state that. If there was a notice, we could try. I don't know how long that will take.
I'll second the motion, but let's try and be as nice to the public as we can.
I think it'll be about, I do think it'll be about an hour. Okay?
No, earlier than 11 might be, if you run over, you can't help but running over.
That's what I was
Yeah,
suggesting.
no, earlier than that.
Yeah,
No, earlier, okay, all right, great.
and that way if they want
My
to
mistake.
have breakfast or something like that, they're welcome to do that.
Thank you. Good.
Uh,
Okay, we
I'll
got
second
a
it.
motion and second. Vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you, folks. Okay, we just completed an executive session for the purpose of receiving legal advice on specific legal questions, including employment law issues, and the Board of County Commissioners' legal obligations and options related to claims and potential litigation, all of which is done pursuant to CRS 24-6-4024B. Time is now 11:04, and the Board of County Commissioners have now come back out of the executive session. The participants in the executive session were Commissioners Thayer, Wilcox, and Richardson, and Attorney Ashley Schlegel, correct?
Ashley Schlegel, yeah.
Thank you. The board took no formal action in contravention of section 24-6-4024 of the Colorado Revised Statutes, and no adoption of any proposed policy, position, resolution, rule, or regulation took place. For the record, if any person who participated in the executive session believes that any substantial discussion of any matters not included in the motion to go into executive session occurred during the executive session, or that any improper action occurred during the executive session in violation of the Colorado Open Meetings Law, I would ask that you state your concerns for the record. Hearing none, on to the next agenda item. So what we'll do is I'll entertain a motion to go forward with some of the discussions that we had.
All right, just based on some of our discussions, as kind of the two commissioners here that are brand new, and Danny, we kind of walked into a unique circumstance. It's a policy board. We've got to call a formal public meeting to make even the simplest decisions regarding oversight management of day-to-day of CES. It's just an extremely ineffective use of our valuable resources to have the overall board working to manage a specific department. So I'd actually like to present a motion that we move day-to-day management oversight of community development services from the BOCC as a whole to a single commissioner to move us a little bit more towards normalcy in an organizational structure.
Do you have a second?
I second the motion.
Any more discussion?
Yeah, I just want to reiterate what Chris said, is that a predictable, professional reporting relationship with any department, particularly the CDS in this particular case, will be beneficial. Just that.
One comment is, last 4 months have been very cumbersome trying to manage the department. Voting process, it has been very cumbersome. So, I agree.
Yeah, as I say, I just kind of watched it evolve over the last year. Coordination between that department and other departments in the county has suffered because of the intermittent guidance from the full board. I don't think we're ready today to select who's going to provide that oversight, and we need to look at resolutions and motions that were made when the original change was made before we take any action to fix some of it.
Motion on the table, we got a second?
Yes, you have a second. And the only comment is that we won't let this thing languish. We wish to get this put in a workable situation, manner. I'm not sure what the right way to present it is, as soon as we can. And the way that we would have to have it as an agenda item in terms of who is selected. So, just that.
Okay. Motion on the table has been seconded. Call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. With that, on to land use. And thank you. Got a presentation, conceptual presentation from Independence.
I'm going to move to the table, so I'll go right ahead.
Hey, Commissioners, good morning. Thank you very much for allowing us here again. My name is Tim Kraft, representative of the Independence team at 1787 South Broadway. I know that I believe all of you have either as a board member or an audience participant seeing this presentation before, there are really no material changes. But knowing that, really wanted to turn it over to you to see if you wanted to jump directly into a question and answer. If you'd like us to run through the presentation as we've done so before, or something in between.
Mr. Kraft, I would like to make a statement before you make your presentation, and you may want to comment on it. I was on the Planning Commission for a long time, and during that period of time, the rules and regulations for cluster development were adopted.
Yes.
I was part of that adoption. I was also on the Planning Commission when Bandera, the predecessor to Independence, was acted upon, and I was one of the ones that was instrumental in putting that one-year sunset clause in the preliminary plat language, I believe it was. If you feel like that puts me in a conflict of interest, please say. I don't believe it does, but this is going to be one of those very unique situations where I was there before, and I expect to be there now. And so I think it's only courteous of me to point that out to you.
No, I understand and appreciate the disclosure. We were aware that you were on Planning Commission at the time when this originally went through. We have discussed with legal counsel and have no issue with you continuing to participate as a board member.
Now I'm going to ask the county attorney to say that this is okay also, if that's true.
I think it's an issue that needs to be discussed, and I'm glad you're bringing it up today. I know we had discussed it briefly last week. I'm not prepared to give a final opinion on it because I haven't asked you some other questions and kind of spent some time with you, Commissioner Thayer, to kind of find out for myself your involvement and what went on. I'd also feel more comfortable once we have that discussion to talk with Independence's counsel about that issue. So if there's a formal agreement that can be reached, then maybe we can do that. But at this point, I'm glad it's been brought up. I would like to, continue a discussion with this and make sure Independence is on the same page. I will state that in my initial research on this issue, there's no absolute prohibition from you being involved in this process. I do not find anything that absolutely mandates your recusal. But we need to discuss it and make sure everybody's on the same page.
Again, I just wanted everyone to be aware because we've just come from 3 days commissioner school and they just told us, tell everybody everything, don't keep any secrets. So.
Okay.
Thanks.
In response to your could you please go through your presentation?
Yes, sir.
I appreciate that.
Thank you. So this is actually exactly from the last one, so you'll see tonight as opposed to this morning. But ideally, we'll run through very quickly about ourselves as the development team, the project history, community outreach done to date, as well as our plan with it moving forward, the overall vision for the community, the actual conceptual plan, and then next steps moving forward, and finally the frequently asked questions that we've learned from working on the project for the last 2.5 years. As far as our actual team, collectively we have over 80 years of experience doing this type of development. Ranges from in-house legal expertise, financial expertise, state planning department, municipal planning department, and the like. We do have a long-term focus, which means we have a multi-cycle focus. Unlike some other projects that may have occurred in the past in Elbert County, we tend to have a decade-plus type horizon on any project that we get involved with. On this one, we've been working on it for a little over 2 years, and that includes our due diligence process, and then the multitude of planning and consulting work that we've done to help put together what you'll see in a moment. That does involve in the neighborhood of 6 law firms, 16 different attorneys, environmental consultants, wildlife consultants, land planning, open space, trail consultants, and the like. We are also committed to responsible development. We will not put a plan in front of you for any sort of community that we wouldn't be comfortable living in ourselves. And we do truly enjoy what we do. We like creating space. And we think that this plan is an execution of that. As far as the project history, this was approved with a preliminary plat and a PUD for 920 homes. The preliminary plat has since expired. We are moving forward with a preliminary and a final plat for a portion of the community that operates within the 920 home density established by the PUD. The adjudicated and decreed water rights have gone through the court process and are established based upon a 300-year requirement, which is unique to the county, not part of the state requirement. The location of the project is identified in orange up at the top. As you can see, it's on the county line, generally located in the northwest portion of the county. This is a screenshot from the county's master plan, which was designed back in 1996. I understand you guys are updating that document based upon roughly an 18-month timeline. But back in that day, it did identify this area as the existing growth in Elbert County, and this slide as the planned growth. Obviously, the Great Recession, the downturn slowed a lot of that growth. But again, you can see that the planned project is within the identified growth area. This is from the same 1996 plan. As you can see, the areas in green are what were subdivided at that time. Obviously, there's been significant development since that time. The project's located again in the orange. Here's a map that we compiled showing subdivisions that have happened since that 1996 document. The areas in purple and blue, the areas in purple represent municipal boundaries. The areas in blue are planned developments going through the process now. And then the Independence Project, again in orange, right in the center of the map. Community outreach. So far we've conducted 2 pre-app meetings, a community meeting, and this will be our 3rd work session. We've also held probably in the neighborhood of 50 to 60 phone calls and had somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 plus meetings. We have met with everyone on the western border, northern border, and eastern border. Have had a handful of conversations with property owners on the southern border and have offered to meet anyone that we know who's been outspoken against the project. We've tried to approach directly, either by phone call or in person, and in many cases have handed out business cards. Just recently, we've also engaged a community outreach group that in the coming months will be more involved reaching out to the community ahead of the actual formal hearings for the project. As a result of those meetings, as well as the work sessions, we've made significant changes to the submittal. The true vision of the project is to create a best-in-class community for future Elbert County residents and existing Elbert County residents. The main, call it the driving concept, is cluster development. We'll touch on cluster development a little bit later, but essentially it moves density towards itself, creating larger areas of open space, and in doing so preserves more usable open space, nature and wildlife corridors, improves drainage conditions, and a whole bunch of ancillary benefits. We're also implementing a first of its kind in the state of Colorado water conservation plan. The goal is to set a higher standard for sustainability, water conservation, and usable open space. Along with that comes parks and buffer areas, as well as homestead preservation for the original Bentley homestead out there. And then we currently have planned somewhere in the neighborhood of 7 or 8 miles of trails open not only to the community residents, but to Elbert County residents as a whole. Cluster development is really what is recognized by the American Planning Association, the Harvard Real Estate Review, and most other, call it nationwide planning groups as the smartest definition of growth. Again, it creates bigger setbacks, larger usable open space, creates more tax revenue per road frontage, and cluster developments are typically more sustainable, not only from, call it an environmental standpoint, but also from an economic standpoint. The actual conceptual plan. This is a, call it a guide of how the community will develop. The areas identified in yellow will be the future development areas. That doesn't mean that all of that will be developed, but that's where development will be located within. This area down on the bottom right is what we're calling Neighborhood 1. That's the portion that we've submitted a final plat for. As you can see, this neighborhood has about another 20% open space from what was originally designated. We anticipate the same to be true in these other areas. This plan has over 440 acres of open space, I believe, and I'll click through some additional charts that show how we pushed open space into some of the ridge areas, some of the low-lying areas, the more sensitive wetlands, how the trails connect throughout, and how the minor collector, which you see there, goes up from the existing Hilltop Road up to Singing Hills 1 mile north. Located on the southwest portion, you'll see a school site, as well as a potential fire site located on the main road also. The water and sewer facility will generally be located within this white curved line that you see there. We have communicated with the property owner on the right side, on the east side. They were comfortable with that. And then keep in mind that this distance there is about a mile. This distance here is about 2 miles. So that provides a significant setback from any other property owners outside of this property. Here's the same space identified with a little bit less detail. So I took out some of the lines so you can see just how much open space is being preserved and just where the density will be located. And then on this map here, you'll see the trail system. And again, circling significant ridge lines, providing connectivity to Douglas County, and then through to the east with connectivity to future areas. The goal here, and this is really going back to the county's existing master plan as well as the most, call it a recognized smart development, is to provide a variety of single-family or a variety of housing types. Everything within this community will be single-family, as dictated by the PUD. However, it will range from zero-maintenance patio homes targeted for either young professionals or empty nesters to single-family homes of various sizes, going up to most likely semi-custom and custom product in latter phases of the community on larger lot sizes. The goal is to produce homes for family. Denver is obviously a growing market. Elbert County is slated to receive a significant portion of that growth. This is not a community here to create demand. We're here to supply the demand that is existing. Parks for Gathering is something we take very seriously. We take great pride knowing that people will be enjoying the community center for barbecues for a long time. Preserved open space obviously does wonderful benefits. And then water conservation, again, is something we take very seriously and will actually be the highest level of water recycling allowed in the state and the first to implement that allowance. Next steps. Moving forward, still within the approved PUD, we'll continue to conduct community outreach. As we've said before, we're willing to meet with anyone. Happy to come down, sit across the kitchen table, and talk about anyone's concerns. The preliminary plat and final plat now have officially been submitted, and that is going through review through community development as well as their consulting baseline agency. From there, expect comments back, a couple of round of comments before we go before Planning Commission and subsequently the BOCC. Frequently asked questions are typically about water, traffic, and lot sizes. Cluster development is a development style that is not seen in Elbert County before, so it's a little unusual. People do have a hard time wrapping their minds around it if they just read about it on paper versus seeing it on plan. Again, we're happy to sit with anyone who would like to hear more about it. As far as water, again, there is a court-approved, adjudicated and decreed water supply to meet the community for a 300-year supply. That is based in the Denver and Arapahoe wells. That ignores the other aquifers that we do have rights to. Most of Elbert County, of course, is served by the shallower aquifers, specifically the upper and lower Dawson. The setback minimum for these wells is 600 feet. We've tripled that at least. Again, push that towards the center based upon input from neighbors. There are no other Denver or Arapahoe wells within that 600-foot setback, and this is a fairly established process. And this is actually something that's been established for about 120 years. Traffic concerns. First off, we're making significant off-site improvements to improve the connectivity within Elbert County. We have met with most of the referral agencies that will be affected. Most of them are very excited about the off-site road improvements we're making. For example, Both the school district and the fire district and the sheriff's office, in some cases, have to leave the county to travel north-south on this corridor. They actually have to move over to Flintwood to get up north to Singing Hills. The road improvements we're making will eliminate that necessity. There's significant impact fees, $4.5 million only to Elbert County. School districts and other agencies will benefit beyond that. And then most importantly, a community's got to pay its own way. There is a net positive tax base of about 350 grand per year. We previously estimated somewhere in the neighborhood of 220. The final report came back actually stronger than that. Again, the real driver there is the amount of road and services needed per home is significantly less than acreage lots. Lot sizes, clustered housing, again, less burdensome, less traffic impacts, and they use less water. If you guys like, we can get into some of those stats a little later. They create bigger setbacks. It tends to do better with wildlife. For example, if you have a dog confined to a smaller space as opposed to 5 acres, antelope and the like are more likely to pass through. They do consume considerably less water, and again, is kind of considered the standard for smart growth. With that, I'll turn it over to you with questions.
I would like to ask a question. And I'm sure you have spent time going through the county budgets of the tax base. You'll note that about 93% of the tax base is from rooftops, and about 7% is from economic activity. And I'm in favor of clusters, so I'm not trying to argue against that. But this exacerbates that problem, and I'm wondering if there's some way that you can have an economic component to your final plat plans. And I don't necessarily mean that you have to have a business within this area. You could be funding an economic recruitment base, or anyway, rather than talk too long, is there some way to put an economic activity component to your development?
We're open to it as long as it's within the PUD, obviously. Happy to work with the county on that. I do want to reinforce that it is a $350,000 net to the county at build-out. So that's positive. That is not a draw on the county's resources.
But that's 15 years.
So the infrastructure phase that matches fairly closely, and I believe we had our economic and impact report broken out into a couple of different phases. Jeff, do you remember if that was right? So I think the economic impact report shows a net positive with just neighborhood 1, the portion that's being final platted now. So even through development, the county pays its own way.
So the 350,000 is just for phase 1?
No, that is for the full project, but it's net positive throughout.
And if your water conservation, how much of your water conservation program contributes to your 300-year water supply?
I'm not sure I followed the question. Do you mind restating?
Well, if it was a normal subdivision, that you would just go to the state and they calculate out the 100-year water availability, you multiply it by 3, and then that's it. And then you divide it by 0.4, 0.5, I can't remember which, per house. And I'm just wondering if your water conservation program, and maybe even the effluent from your treatment facility, does that contribute to the 300-year water supply?
It does. We're still assuming the county's standard consumptive use per single-family equivalent. And the actual total annual supply is somewhere in the neighborhood of 529 years, actually. Again, the 300-year supply
That's just
is...
based on the groundwater, or does that include the conservation part of it?
That includes the conservation part. The Denver and the Arapahoe wells with the conservation program are what extended to such a greater degree.
So just on, if you were just going to do a conventional look at it, would you still have the 300-year water supply?
Honestly, we don't know. We never run those calcs because this was something identified in the PUD, so we worked towards that end.
Yeah, I've got, I guess, a couple of simple ones, a couple of comments, but just kind of on the administrative side. Who's the outreach group you engaged? I get a lot of phone calls. I just want to make sure I'm not talking to the wrong people.
Group card called CRL.
CRL. Thank you.
We actually found them because they're also working with the Douglas County, Elbert County Realtors Association.
Okay, thank you. And then, would it be possible either through CDS or the county manager just to get a copy of your slides?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. And I did just, I guess, in the disclosure side, I do sit on the Elizabeth School Board. I've talked to the superintendent, actually back when I was on the planning commission, but any discussions the district staff had with your organization were to be passed to me, and I'd recuse myself if it became any board discussion at that level.
Understood.
Had to do with the school board. For me, the areas of interest as this goes forward are going to be the effects of increased traffic in the area, how we look at addressing those, impacts of water availability was talked about, and our ability to service potential population growth versus anticipated revenue. Sounds like those are pieces of what will come forward to us, so I appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
Have you built any clustered communities like this locally? And I apologize if some of these are questions that were asked before.
No, not at all. And a great question. So the Tallman Gulch community, also on Hilltop Road, located about 2 miles northwest of this community, is a version of a clustered community.
How many homes?
That one is 121 homes on just about 500 acres, 454 acres. The lots are larger. Those are about acre and a half on average, but it does preserve 50% open space.
And your timeline for the build out, I granted mentioned 15 years. Is there something, I mean, I assume sooner is better for you?
It is. We're assuming somewhere between 7 and 15 years is probably realistic.
That's kind of my first round, I guess.
Well, then I'm going to go around too. Talking about the economic development versus rooftops. One of the things that is very apparent from your map here, and I don't know if there's a solution to it, but I hope we can figure one out, is this, again, you said it's $350,000 worth of net positive economic development to the county, which is not very much considering how many homes we're talking about. The big problem I have is for your phase one and maybe phase two, I don't know how this is going to work, is that you've created a funnel for all of the economic activity from the first phase and probably several other phases out of the county. You drop into Hilltop Road, and the nearest opportunity for economic activity is not in Elbert County, it's in Parker. So again, I'm going to keep circling back to this fact that we need to have an economic idea that's incorporated into your plan. And one of the things that is apparent from the map is we've got the funnel there, yes. And then the second part is I have the weakness of an MBA, so I like to look at economic cycles. We have no idea if this is going to be 7 years or 50 years to be built out, depending on the Great Recession repeating itself and that kind of thing. So if I remember right, and I may have my facts wrong, and I'm sure you can correct them, is that when you presented this to the previous county commissioners, the extension of that road through up to Singing Hills, whether we might be able to generate some economic activity, would take place after, and I can't remember the number, 380, 390?
370, I believe.
Yeah. So my concern is that rather than have that road built out tied to building permits, I would like to have it tied to a clock, that it has to be built after 2 years, and I'm sure you and the CDS can come up with a reasonable amount, and then have it bonded so that at that time, if it doesn't happen, we can, because we need to connect those two roads, and we need to connect them sooner rather than later.
Understood.
And and I understand you're trying to stay with the PUD. The thing is if you amend the PUD, you don't kill the old one. If we mess up and turn down some improvements that you might have, that doesn't take away your opportunity. It just makes it better for you and for us. So, well, I guess what I'm asking is, if you have some imagination that can be slid into it in terms of economic activity for the county, I think it would be very beneficial.
Love to work with the county on economic activity. We are moving forward to try to avoid amending a PUD and operating on the existing and currently approved PUD. That is what identified the 370th building permit requirement. But happy to circle back with our attorneys and see if there's a way to move things around without actually amending the PUD to accomplish the same goal.
I'd be happy to work, or I think we'd all be happy to work, but we need economic activity in this county. And the ratio between economic activity and rooftops is terrible that we have right now. So
I do want to come back to that because you're right, like 350,000 net positive for a community is not a whole lot of money. However, it is dramatically different than anything else in the county. The rooftops in the county largely tax the community. If you have 1 to 10 acre lots, it's typically they pay for about 70% of what they cost the county.
I understand the argument. We're going to have this argument with the next developer too, I'm sure. So,
No, and then as part of our fiscal impact study, we also asked that they include numbers on job growth, both temporary and permanent moving forward, as well as total investment dollars into the Elbert County as a whole. But again,
now, don't take anything I said here to be negative towards your deal. We just got to make it more county sensitive, if you will.
Understand.
Or reality sensitive.
Happy to work with you guys on that.
The secondary entrance you provided there for fire access, you have that.
Yes, sir.
Cost-wise, is that just dirt? Are you setting it up as a dirt
No,
entrance?
that is all weather road base. It will be chained off to prevent typical traffic. It is something that we have been working with the Elizabeth Fire Department on, and they have okayed that use, of course, pending the final engineering review, which we have submitted to them. That temporary access, including the grading, culvert work, all-weather road base, and then the removal of all that, once another access point opens, is probably in the neighborhood of 60 or 70,000.
I just, along the southern boundary, the 150-foot setback, I like, if we were to, in the future, based on traffic, have to widen Hilltop, is it possible to dedicate some of that space to us so we're not taking the
Yes,
land
that's
owners
great.
on the southern side?
So on the southern border there, as well as the western border there, we have gone ahead and we plan to dedicate the additional full right-of-way requirement. Part of that is on the southern portion that is included in our submittal to community plan.
And then the rights to land eventually moving up to Signal Hills. Is that a private road currently, or?
As far as we can tell, there was an easement going here at some point. That has since been vacated. It doesn't appear that there's prescriptive use easements there. It is not county owned by either Douglas County or Elbert County today.
But you don't anticipate getting access to that land to put a road in?
No, we've actually already begun discussions with the property owners along there.
Okay.
It's a multi-year need and discussion, but the wheels are moving on that as well. And that actually fits within both Douglas County and Elbert County's traffic master plans.
Thank you.
Is the road easement that Chris just talked about, would that come out of the 150 feet, or is that in addition?
I believe that's in addition to, correct? Total setback from the back of right of way? Yes.
So,
Total setback from back of right of way.
Okay. Internal lighting, street lighting, downcast, I assume?
Sure,
Lighting.
understand that's an issue. That has been addressed in the landscape plan that we submitted. Requires shielded lights at all intersections. It goes into much greater detail talking about the types and wattage of LED lights, lumens allowed, and so on. The goal is to reserve dark habitat.
If things were to continue on the timeline that worked best for you, When would you anticipate breaking ground and selling homes?
Breaking ground probably within the next 6 months. And then actual home sales would likely start another 6 months thereafter. 6 months to a year thereafter. Some of the longer lead items on construction are obviously the water and sewer facility, improvements to 158, and then of course the on-lot improvements.
Is that, the sewage part plant, is that expandable as you build, or are you putting in full capacity initially? Or
It is a phase program.
Phase.
I have a number of questions before, which I won't go through again. One, traffic counts on 158 based on when you start development. Have you analyzed that and improvements on 158? Because I've driven that road. And it's...
We have. There are actually 3 levels of traffic studies done, or 3 sampling of traffic data that was taken to perform. The first was tied back to the original approvals. Second was conducted by us, I believe, last summer. And then we updated that to get the difference between the summer traffic and call it the school year traffic this past fall. All of that is included in a traffic report that was submitted to community development as well as baseline. As we understand, they're reviewing that now. It does match up with the previous assumptions that were approved with the preliminary plat back in the day. The planned improvements tie pretty well, and the level of service is at a municipal acceptable level in all cases. And in some cases, we actually improve traffic conditions because of the improvements that will be made in future phases.
The effluent from the treatment facility, are you piping it back into the system, or is it draining off?
It is piped back into the system. So there's, call it category 1 treatment, which is basically just ditch runoff. Category 2 is treated to a much higher level. That's what you'll typically see on, say, golf courses and open space irrigation. This will be the first community to implement in Colorado what's called category 3 treatment. It's the highest level of treatment approved in the state. And what that allows us to do is not only to irrigate the open spaces, but actually the on-lot irrigation, so the front yards and backyards.
So you'll have parallel water system?
We will, throughout.
For the first 340 homes, is that a variety of lot sizes as well, and price ranges, or those?
Sure, no, that's a great question. Jeff, can you pull up a slide of the final plat, if you would? But it includes 4 different lot sizes. We anticipate each lot size to have at least 1 different home type. So, and I say type as far as like the square footage range. More specifically, we anticipate the smallest lots probably to have homes in the neighborhood of 1,600 to 2,200 square feet, above grade finished space. That excludes basement and 2-car garages. Most likely that'd go up to maybe 3,500 to 4,200 square feet on the largest lot sizes.
Looking at multiple builders, or?
We are. Ideally, we'd like to have probably 4 builders in. Each one would most likely have probably 5 to 10 home plans per their segment of the community. So you're looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of probably 50 different home plans, each one with multiple different elevations.
My eyesight isn't very good. What's the difference in the color coding on this thing?
Those are the different lot sizes. So you've got the orange with the 50-foot fronts, the purple with the 60s, the blue with the 70s, and the reds with the 80s. So generally, moving through there are the 50s, the ones that back open space there are the 60s, 70s at the top there, and then 70s and 80s here. Should also note that that setback to the backyard line, I think it's about 280 feet. So even larger than the 150 that we promise here.
And there's no direct driveway access off the main road?
Correct. This whole road, which currently called County Road 5, will be unloaded with residential.
I asked this before once about commercial development considerations in there. And I think you mentioned it was, we have to change the meaning.
Correct.
If you did that, would it make that community more valuable to you? It would to the county.
The economic impact of commercial here would be minimal to the developer. Something like that would probably be a net zero with the additional infrastructure costs necessary to connect it. However, I do normally like to include commercial in a project. I think it just makes for a better community.
And if you're going to put commercial in here, what, do you have any idea what that could be?
So we have studied the PUD in great detail to determine what we can do now. What we've come up with is that the homestead, which will be a combination of restoring the existing buildings and building new ones, is provide essentially a gravel crusher fine parking lot. The goal there is to dedicate that over to either the HOA or the district as a nonprofit that could then potentially host things like, say, farmers markets, 2 days a month and the like. We've also looked at housing small businesses in kind of a communal office space type situation, so that stay-at-home parents have an opportunity to go in and run a small business from the community rather than having to drive into town, again, through the clubhouse. In terms of a location for commercial, at some, if we have the flexibility within the PUD, either, again, in the Homestead area, Long County Road 5, maybe up here, maybe down there.
You mentioned HOA or Metro District, or you leaning one way or the other? Or,
leaning more towards the district. The real reason is it's a net benefit to the future homeowners because they can write off that tax impact that would otherwise be paid to an HOA, which they cannot write off.
In the land surrounding it, quite a bit of it, at least on on two sides, is undeveloped. What do you see happening there in the future?
Kind of staying out of that. I think that's more a master plan issue. Than
Yeah, I was
us.
really leading up to the question that if it was a sequence of cluster developments, it'd be really nice if we could figure out how to make the open space contiguous.
There would. We did look and refer back to design workshops study on open space that was prepared and try to conform with that as much as possible. For the most part, they designated this area call it low priority. It doesn't have the same impacts as some areas more eastern in the country in terms of wildlife and the like. But we did anticipate, again, with, say, the trail system, future development. We actually had trails on this side earlier. We removed that based upon the input of those two neighbors. This trail likely will end up connecting to that community, assuming that community ever develops. And then this one does connect over to the property on the east. The goal is to build what would eventually be a regional trail system for residents in Elbert and Douglas County to move back and forth east and west in the county.
I like your presentation. Like I said, from my perspective, the two weaknesses are the road connection with respect to timing, and then an economic component somehow. And if you say, cut the storytelling and tell me what you have in mind, that's going to take a challenge. But economic development is, our budgeting process it just resonates with the fact that we need to make that part of the planning process.
Understand. And then again, let me reinforce, there is the 350 net positive. There is somewhere in the neighborhood of 9 million plus in impact fees that will go to the county and the associated districts within the county. And then of course the job creation for a 400 million plus investment into the county. Typically I believe that's 4.5 jobs during the construction period. And then somewhere in the neighborhood of, I think, don't hold me to this, it's in the impact study, somewhere in the neighborhood of half a job per home. Jeff, can you actually confirm those numbers? we'll come back to you with that.
And
I just want to warn you, I'm going to harass you at the final plat
That's all right.
with the same question.
Okay, good. I would normally ask for public comment, but in this situation, it's not appropriate because this was a presentation to the board. So I apologize. In the future, there will be opportunities for people to present and so.
So on the same note, email, community website, and phone number. To the extent anyone has any questions, comments, would like to meet with us, we're happy to do so. And Jeff, those numbers on the fiscal impact?
Yeah, 4.3 and Joe.
4.3 what?
4.3 jobs per home during the construction period, and then half a job moving forward, half a permanent job per home moving forward. One full-time every two, I like that better.
Thank you, Kyle.
Thank you very much.
I just wanted to let you know that this will be posted, the slideshow will be posted on the Elbert County website. All you need to do is go to Community and Development Services. On the very home page of CDS, you'll see current projects of interest. Just click that and you'll have links of everything that's current that people have asked me about. And if you see something or don't see something there that you're interested in, let me know. Nobody's asked me about it yet. So all of their documents will be there, and I'll post this there as well.
Thanks.
So where are we in terms of the process? Are we a couple of months out? Are we a couple of
You know,
years out?
we've got the, we're working on getting the application complete. We've gone through it, it's large. We had a few comments back to you, need a couple of things from you, and then it'll go out, it's going out to referral, or has gone out to
Have
referral.
all been.
Yeah, so it's probably gone out to referral. It may have gone out to referral late last week. So it's in a referral period of 35 days. We'll gather comments. We'll return those comments back to the applicant. The applicant then, of course, turns those as quickly or as slowly as the applicant does. These guys tend to produce and react pretty quickly. Then it gets resubmitted to us. And whether or not those changes were substantive enough to trigger another referral period, we don't know yet because we haven't seen them yet. But it could possibly go for a second 35-day referral. We don't know yet. If they're not massive changes or if they're internal changes that internal departments review, that can turn a little bit more quickly. And it's that kind of fine-tune back and forth between staff comments and referral comments and the applicant until we get that document to align with all of those comments that were gathered through referral. It's at that point when we're ready for hearing and we find hearing dates. So it's in referral, it's in its first referral period now.
So you're basically said it's 90 to 120 days, something like that?
I would think that that's actually not a bad guess. Hopefully closer to the 90. I mean, if everybody's responsive going back and forth, it would be closer to the 90.
Okay. Thank you, Gordon. All right, that concludes it. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much.